Now, as you know, I'm not one to moan. I'm not one to moan, I'm not one to complain. But where the bloody hell have you lot all been all season? Eh? You cheeky little so-and-sos. What game? What performance? I mean, look, hands up. I'm not devastated given our current situation that we've gone out of the Champions League. We hardly have any players. We need to keep everybody fit, blah, 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 blah. So to me, tonight was almost in the context of Spurs being in a relegation battle, the perfect scenario. We win on the night. We played bloody well. We showed a lot of fight. You know, Atlético kind of pegging us back a lot, pegging us. It's not what I meant, but you know what I'm saying. They kept like pulling us back into it. We didn't lose heart. We didn't lose any of that desire. We pressed for the whole game. We looked really good defensively. Okay, there was a couple of lapses, you know, I get it. Like there's sloppy things that come in here and there, but still, for the most part, we were brilliant. And you know, I had a title. One of my videos on here was entitled "Get Igor out of the club, get him gone. He's shown he's not good enough." And yeah, I was being fickle, but I think 90% of the fan base was at that point. The majority of people I spoke to were all being like, Tudor, what are we doing? What are we playing at here? What's going on? What's this bloke? Most of the press were all sort of saying, who is this guy? What's going on? Spurs have made such a catastrophic error here. We got Harry Redknapp being wheeled out and all this type of stuff, right? And all of it, for me, like, and I keep saying it, but for me, it was the pre-Liverpool presser. He dealt with some pretty uncomfortable questions really well. We played brilliantly against Liverpool. And then I think the fallout of that Liverpool game, seeing that smarmy, nasty interview from the Sky Sports reporter. I can't remember his name, and I wouldn't really want to call him out by name anyway, but the smarmy, nasty interview where he was basically trying to trip Igor Tudor over, it felt like. Trying to kind of use, bearing in mind, you know, this Tudor's first language isn't English, kept trying to like word spaghetti him and trip him over and all this type of stuff. Tudor, again, composed fashion, dealt with it, made the reporter look silly, and actually triggered him. And what I would say is, what we've seen from this point now is Tudor is really, really, really showing that siege mentality. Tudor has really been showing, you're going to come for me, I'm going to give you some back. And there's been, say, a couple of moments. There's a couple of moments that I've complained about, but maybe it was all part of the bigger picture. In press conferences when he's spoken about big problems at Tottenham and all this type of stuff. Because it really feels like he's just turned this corner the past week or so where he's like, we're fully in siege mode now. It's us against the world. And he's batting off this left, right, and centre. He keeps calling for unity. He keeps calling for composure amongst the players. And importantly, he's calling for belief. Now, if we look at that Liverpool game and we look at this Atletico Madrid game as our sample size here, I would say that message is starting to come through. That message is starting to come through loud and clear. Because what I saw tonight was a team that didn't look like it was going to get relegated from the Premier League. Now, the important thing at this point that was made to me, somebody made this point to me in the comments in the last stream after the Liverpool game, is from this point on, we take each game as it comes. Each game as it comes. We don't use the last result behind us to cast aspersions as to what's going to go on next. And that works either way. You know, we lost the Palace game. I was guilty of it. Many other people were guilty of it, of saying, that's it, it's done. We're done. We're finished. If we don't beat Palace at home, that's it, it's done. Then suddenly we turn up at Anfield. And all the kind of old cliches, and I don't even really think it's cliches, just because it's something that people say a lot because they notice a pattern in this stuff. But a lot of the stuff where people will say, you know, a lot can change very quickly in football is true. A few weeks ago, I was staring at this team. I was looking at them and I was thinking, nothing is going to inspire this lot. Nothing at all is going to inspire them. Nobody's going to be able to put a rocket up this lot. We might go down with some vibes with Mason. He loves the club, all this type of thing, or Redknapp forming part of the team with Defoe or whoever. I don't know. And we sort of vibes our way out of things a bit or whatever. But suddenly, you know, Igor Tudor comes in, and you know, I'm not sat here advocating for Igor Tudor to be our next permanent manager or anything like that, and nor am I saying that he's, you know, a completely superb manager. I mean, I don't, brutally honest, I don't know enough about him. I don't really know enough about his career, to be honest, other than the bits that we've all read and heard and whatever when we signed him as our temporary boss. But what you can say is that he has probably a lot more experience than I think we gave him credit for. I think that's a crucial point. It was kind of treated as like he's this rando. Yeah, I think people sort of my age and older knew Igor Tudor as a good player. You know, he was a good player, good Juventus player, won a fair bit with Juventus, if I recall. As I said the other week, was good in Pez. That's one of my enduring memories of Igor Tudor. But as a gaffer, it was always like, he's just this rando that kind of, has sort of gone from pillar to post. But actually, really, he's pretty experienced. He's managed some pretty big clubs, and he's done all right. And I guess the point I'm driving at is that suddenly, when you have a manager that is decent, number one, is at least kind of okay, right? And then who actually perhaps breathes more of a message of belief into these players. It doesn't take a lot to make talented footballers suddenly start to look good again. And I think many of us, and I do think, and I include myself in that, I think many of us probably, and understandably so, right, to let myself and everyone else off the hook, but I think many of us lost sight of the fact that we do have quite a talented group of players. There are some frustrations with them and whatever, and I don't think those just disappear. But like we say, the Grand Inquisition gets pushed to summer. That's when those sort of conversations have. Where we're at right now is that we do have a talented group of players. They've clearly needed somebody to inject some belief into them. And bringing in somebody like Tudor, who has some experience, who is a straight talker, who is maybe a bit old school and all that type of stuff, but is a competent manager, has managed to come in. Now, look, I'm not saying, look, I haven't been on the training pitch. I don't know Thomas Frank's competency in that way, right? I can't sit here and say Thomas Frank was an incompetent guy, whatever, right? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. There's many factors that can play out here. But what we can say is the bit that we were treated to, what we have been privy to, the matches we've watched him play were awful. We're lacking in belief. Our setup was constantly negative. It was very unclear as to what it was we were actually doing, other than really just trying to defend and hold on to leads or hit teams on a counter. And outwardly, his messaging, the way in which he spoke about us, the way in which he spoke to the press, was always just so neggy. It was so dull. It was so Like, it was such a draw having to listen to him. And you can only imagine what it was like for the players. And it's already suddenly, night and day, isn't it? Performances like this, performances like at Anfield the other day. People can say what they want. People can say that Liverpool aren't very good this season. They were saying it tonight. The Champions League commentators were saying, Atletico Madrid aren't quite the same Atletico Madrid they were a few years ago. But so what? Like Spurs aren't the team they were a few years ago. We're not. We're not the team with Kane and Son, Eriksen, and all those other players that I go on about all the time. But we're not. We're not that same team anymore. So we've got, I'm not interested in like where Liverpool are at. I'm not interested in where Atletico Madrid are at. Those are two good results. They're two good results, and importantly, they're two very good performances. Two very, very good performances, exceptional performances, really, under the circumstances. Do you know what I mean? Like, under the circumstances and in comparison to what we've seen for large parts of this season, those are exceptional performances. And once again, because I did get very emotional after the Liverpool game, because you know what? Like, I do one of these after every game, and it's been months. And I'm not making out like I'm a victim here. Don't get me wrong or anything. I'm just sort of saying the fact that months of just having to sit here and try and rationalize Tottenham being so terrible, trying to sort of walk the line of being like, well, I don't want to be too negative. I can't just sit here for an hour and say, don't like Thomas Frank, don't like any of the players. And some of those pods were probably like that. Like, there are some pods where I've probably lost my ass a bit more than other ones or whatever. But for the most part, I try to, be as sort of rational or considered as I can at times. And obviously that doesn't always come through as the clip that's been doing the rounds this week will attest to, right? But I think for anybody to pretend that I'm the only one that's ever had a moan about a Spurs player after a game, it's patently untrue. But look, after the Liverpool game, I got emotional because what you wanted to see was some fight. You wanted to see that there was actually something there. That this thing that we tether so much of our identities to, and whatever people can say, it's pathetic. People can say it's ridiculous, but it's true. I'll happily say that. I've been making Spurs stuff online since I was 14, 15 years old. Like I say, I used to run an old Tottenham website. I made my animations. I have done a podcast for however long. I've blogged. I've done all sorts. It's because it's what I love. It's because it's what I'm passionate about. It's not some grand conspiracy to like, there's this whole thing, podcasters, this and that. You all want to just jump on this because it's, you're trying to siphon money out of the club, mate. I like the amount of hours I stick into doing this. I wish this was my way of paying my bills, paying my mortgage, all that type of stuff. But it's not. It's a passion project, and it's a passion that we all share, and it's realized in many different ways. You got Slade Weld. Have any of you ever seen this Slade Weld lad? He's got a massive Instagram. He's on Twitter all the time. Creates all these incredible, like, Tottenham statue figurines, casts, whatever. I'm not sure what the technical term is, but he welds them all out of these pieces of metal. He actually made one for the club. That's somebody that's putting their passion into it. You look at all the people, look at all the writers, look at all the, the other video creators, the other podcasters, the photographers, the filmmakers, the people that create all the edits, or just the people that go up and down the country every other weekend. Like, this club it means a lot to all of us. It shapes our lives. I literally met my wife at a Tottenham game. I'm married as a result of this club. I have a child as a result of this club. You know, both of our families are all Tottenham. It's quite good having a father-in-law that's also Spurs. You know, it's good. Makes it a bit easier. You know, and what we've all been sort of having to stomach for large parts of this season. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. Don't get me wrong. It's not over yet. But what we've had to stomach for large parts of this season is hard. It's hard when you see the thing that you sink so much of your life into, that means so much to you on many different levels, right? Give you so little back. It's hard to reconcile. And that's not, again, like people say, that's not, yeah, I know you're not entitled to win everything. And as I keep saying, we're not a fan base that expects to do that, you know? We didn't win anything under Pochettino, and pretty much every Spurs fan I know talks about that as being one of the greatest times of their lives. And as I continue to say, we saw it with Redknapp, we saw it with Yol. These times when the club actually gives you something back, when it just seemingly loves you as much as you love it, that's all you want from it. And we haven't seen any of that for quite some time. And that's come to a head. And yes, Bilbao, I know I have to keep talking about Bilbao. You can't just gloss over Bilbao. And the only reason why it does kind of stick out is because it was so aberrative. And there's wonderful parts to Bilbao, don't get me wrong. The fact that Ange said he always wins something in his second season and did it, whether you loved Ange or didn't, is brilliant. It's an objectively cool thing to happen. It just is, in terms of as a sport narrative, that's a pretty sick thing. The fact that he backed himself in that way and Spurs went and did it is a cool narrative. It's a cool narrative to have associated with your club, right? The fact that we won now 3 Europa Leagues, UEFA Cups, is cool, is nice. That's a great thing. To see Sonny lift something before he left was amazing, was brilliant. But equally, it was something that came out of a lot of chaos, It wasn't like it was something that we'd gradually kind of built and, grown towards. If anything, it was the stuff we were drifting away from, those sort of glittering evenings, weren't we? We were drifting away from all of that. And that was like our last sort of reach out and grab for it. And that doesn't devalue it. That doesn't make it any worse or anything. But the point I'm trying to make is that, when you're talking about this, when you're talking about the club giving you so little back, when you're talking about it being a hard few years as a Spurs fan, and people say, well, you just won that massive trophy in Bilbao. It's like, yeah, but there's greater context to that, There's a greater context behind all of that, which is it. It was a needle in a haystack or whatever. That's not really the right analogy for that, is it? But still. I guess the point I'm trying to get to with all of this, with this big roundabout kind of waffle I'm going on, is the past few games, 2 games, not few, the past 2 games in particular, and I suppose for a half, the second half away in Madrid, you get that feeling back that they actually care. That something has broken through, whether it's Tudor, whether it's the fact that, the sort of the should we say, the fans have pretty organically come to this point that whatever we think about a lot of these players or the club or what have you, it's the time to get behind them now. It feels like things just came to something of a head where whatever it is, the direction, the winds have changed, right? They've shifted. Things have changed in a different direction. And suddenly we're able to look at our club through a much more optimistic lens. a lens that doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like something where we're clutching at straws. It doesn't feel like we're, you know, over-egging the truth or anything like that. I think you can sit and watch Spurs and watch those past couple of games in particular and say, maybe, just maybe, things are falling into place at the right time, at least, you know, to ensure that we don't get relegated. And that feels like an awful thing to say. And I'm sure it's one of those things that if there's the odds Arsenal fan or something listening or watching, they have a laugh because, they're about to do whatever it is they're going to do this season. And we're sat here saying suddenly, oh, it's wonderful. What a wonderful club we have because we might actually avoid relegation. Yeah, sure. But again, as I say, in a different way, in a bizarro way, as I'm making that point about Bilbao, the situation that we find ourselves in now, this little sort of mini league table we find ourselves in at the bottom of the league, that becomes our priority. And if we stay up, and if it comes down to the wire, if it comes down to literally the last day at home to Everton, and we win or whatever, and we stay up, it will feel like we've won something. Because it's all just relative. It's all relative, and it's all in context. And the relief will wash over us, and we'll be able to go into the summer much more optimistically, I feel. Yep, we'll probably have to ride a bit of whatever, swallow a bit from Arsenal fans who will be jubilant, no doubt. But look, doesn't really matter. Like as I said the other day, like friend of the show Ollie was saying, the one thing about Spurs being this bad and this in peril, it's sort of really made him not really care about Arsenal at the moment, because it's like it's all eyes on Spurs now. All eyes on Spurs and what we can do, and us staying safe and us staying in the Premier League. Because that's important. This stuff's all important. It's worth saying at this point, as I'm talking about like fan unity and all this type of stuff, right? Forest is going to be a massive game, absolutely massive. There's been a group of fans. Billy T has been sharing the stuff, but he will be the first to tell you it's not all organised by him. There's a big group of people who have all been behind this, organising it. I'm going to be speaking to a couple of them tomorrow for the pod. So please tweet me any questions or anything for the organisers. Let's spit it out, Jack. Sunday, 11:30 a.m., get to the stadium. The players are going to be arriving on a bus. We have to get there and show them that we're all behind them. 11:30 a.m., get outside that ground, wear white, bring your scarves. I, in no way, shape or form, would advocate the bringing of anything like pyro because it's illegal. Remember those scenes as the bus came holding up the Europa League? We need, yeah, all right. It's not a jubilant occasion on this one, but it's to show them that we're still there. Thick and thin and all that, right? So get down there, 11:30 a.m. Get onto the high road. I think everybody's meeting outside the bricklayers first and foremost. So bricklayers on the high road, get there. The strap line for this has been show up, sing up, stay up. So, let's do it. Let's make ourselves, let's do our part in all of this. Let's show the players that we're all behind them. And, let's keep this momentum going, because suddenly, if we beat Forest and we go into that international break with that amount of daylight between us, it's suddenly the world the world is looking, at least in a footballing sense, let's say, is looking much rosier. Quite a few comments tonight. Quite a lot of people watching. I thought, do you know what? I thought this was going to be a dead one tonight, if I'm honest. I thought everyone would have just been happy with that and gone to bed. But Palindrome Pirate says, COYFS, I miss this Tottenham. So did I, mate. So did I. Ample Sample says, more smiles, love it. It's all about Sunday now. It is, mate. It is. Pirate Dread Roberts says, hello, Jack. Great performance tonight. I've got hope for the first time in a long time. Me too, mate. Like, me too. And it's a good feeling, isn't it? It's good to feel this way. Capote says, we won a game of football in 2026. It's not even April. Jack Underhill says, I'm a little rattled. Really enthused by the performance, but we could have won that if not for their dark arts. Awful turf slip goals. Yep, I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. There's cause to be frustrated. I'm not here to police that. I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't be frustrated, because I do share a lot of that feeling. I sort of think the slippery turf, the watering of the pitch stuff is a step beyond dark arts. I just think it's actively cheating, really. But, you know, they're not the only team to do it. It is something that happens in football. So, you know, what are you going to do? But let's just stay with it. You know, we did our part. We did, aside for packing sort of another set of like blades or longer studs, we did our part. We rallied well in that away leg. We didn't let it affect us going into the game at Anfield, and we definitely didn't let it affect us tonight. So just stay with that positive vibe in it. Stel Morrison says, evening, Jack. Well, that was the most enjoyable game. That was a loss that I can remember. Well, we won on the night. You know. Certainly since the FA Cup ding-dong against Everton under Mourinho. Ricochet Pig says, terrific performance, some great attacking play. Let's hope they can keep playing with that positivity and that intensity. Yes. Yes. Let's hope they can indeed. Eris 7000X says, really nice to win tonight. Players show fight. Roll on Sunday. Huge match, but feeling a lot more confident. Coys. Yes. 320 Music VB says, the perfect result tonight in this situation. Strong performance and going out so we don't have to focus on anything else now. Yeah, look, I know that sort of school of thought will rankle with some people, but it's how I feel as well, mate. I'm entirely with you. Ross Bridgeford says, so much more confident for the weekend compared to 10 days ago. I'm absolutely convinced we're beating Forest now. Coys. Good on you, mate. Good on you. Cheslin Lakani says, ham on, hee. Coys. Jack Underhill also says, glad Xavi finally scored a screamer. Yeah, and it was beautiful, wasn't it? What a goal. I'd be a liar if I said I wasn't grumbling a little bit about him on WhatsApp during the first half. But what a goal and what a performance in the second half overall, really. The bloke ran himself into the ground and was just knocking it about nicely. Looked like he'd started to, you know, find obviously a goal like that's going to do that for somebody, but it looked like he'd found like an extra bit of confidence there, really, that has been maybe lacking from this. I honestly, I don't think I've ever doubted Xavi Simons' quality at any point, his actual ability. I just probably of late started to question his suitability to the Premier League or whatever that means. But maybe a lot of it is just that, you know, the quite obvious situation that we're in. Teams playing badly, confidence is low across the board. We don't have many other creative players for him to sort of, sound off with or whatever. And thus, it hampers him. But more games like tonight, and then, suddenly things are looking great again, aren't they? Pip Walker says, it could be a long time before we play in Europe again, let alone Champions League. So it's wonderful for this to be the farewell before the hiatus. I know what you mean, Pip, and I was saying that as well before the game. I said my sister went to the match tonight. I was saying to her, like, the same thing. I was like, enjoy it. We won't be there again for a while. But also, my friend Adam of the Echoes of Glory podcast said people have said that about Spurs for like the last decade. They've said, we're not going to be in the Champions League again for ages. We're not going to be in Europe again for ages. And yet we always seem to come back. So, it's just in our blood. It is in our blood. People talk about, and I say this all the time, but much as we talk about Spursy, as much as we talk about all the negative stuff, playing in Europe, playing well in Europe, it's just in the blood of this club. It's running through us. So, Squigmar says, was refreshing to enjoy 90 minutes of footy again, even when Atleti had drawn back level. Yeah, it was. Because the funny thing is, even when they were drawing back, we were playing in such a way that made it feel like, yeah, we'll get back into this. We will get back into this, because you can tell that they believe. Chris Jones says, the greatest Tudor comeback since the Battle of Bosworth Field. James Forster says, proud of the last two performances. Tudor is getting a response from these players and hopefully getting rid of the imprint Frank left on them. Thanks for doing these pods, Jack Coys. Thank you for listening to them, mate. Thank you for interacting with them, supporting the show. I appreciate it. Yep, Ross Bridgeford said Simmons' goal, by the way. Pirate Dread Roberts, Archie Gray, what a player. I can't believe it's taken me over half an hour to just wax lyrical about Archie Gray, who is just a phenomenal player, isn't he? Like, I'm not going to do comparisons and all this type of stuff because, quite frankly, I think they're fairly redundant. I think one of the main things that getting to this age and watching as much football as I have done and watching various different transfers and all this sort of thing, you can make comparisons between players. Of course you can, to a certain degree, but these hard and fast, this player is better than that player is better than this player. Players are individually brilliant, obviously, but you can never underestimate the impact that a team, a system, or whatever has on a certain player, a situation that a club is going through, if you like. Who is it? Who was the manager always used to say this situation? I think Conte used to say it about us quite a lot, to be fair. The point I was going to say anyway is there's a lot of chat all the time about, Adam Wharton, about Elliot Anderson and all this sort of thing. Two fine footballers, two lovely, lovely footballers, don't get me wrong. But as much as, like, the grass is greener on the other side and all that, I'm starting to look at, like, Archie Gray and think, you know what? Like, we might just have our boy here. Like, he was under our nose this whole time. And I've always, receipts are there. I've always said that I've liked Archie Gray. The bits I've seen of him I thought has been good. My issue, like many other people have had, is that, we spent a lot of money on a prospect. And that's been hard for people to reconcile once the team's been as bad as it has been. And we've needed a player in that, in the middle of the park in that way. But he has been sort of thrown in at the deep end, and it hasn't always been plain sailing. It hasn't always been that smooth, but you would say in the past, he's been gradually getting there, but I would say the past month, right? I reckon the past month, something's just suddenly clicked for Gray, where he has gone from, like, sort of like a 6 out of 10 player to suddenly an 8 out of 10 player most games for Tottenham, no matter where you stick him on the pitch. And this isn't just one of those. He runs a lot. He's one of those playing for the shirt, make this boy the next captain. I agree with all that stuff, all the passion, proper football man stuff. I do, but technically speaking, he's a wonderful player. He's a lovely, lovely player. He can get stuck in. He can do the nasty stuff. But I think the way in which he moves about the pitch, the way in which he kind of, drives forwards with the ball, the passes he can pick, I think he's a very, very talented player. And I don't think that's a hot take. I'm not really trying to make that as some sort of hot take. He's a joy to watch. Brilliant player. Absolutely stupendous this evening, I felt. And another great night for Mathys Tel, I thought. On Gray, I do like him and Sarr together. I think there's a real nice balance to that, and I think they have a real good understanding. Like that to me is the midfield two. That's the two I want to see playing. But Mathys Tel again, really good performance, really positive. Obviously, set up the first goal that Randall Colomwani dispatched very nicely as well, to give him his dues. But yeah, Tel was constantly driving down that left-hand side in the first half, cutting inside, making a nuisance of himself, getting a few shots off, which weren't always the best, but he was positive. He was making things happen. He was rattling the opposition. And sometimes you just need a bit of that. You need to keep them on their toes. Get their attention. Hacker CPS says, what a game. We'd have gone through it if it weren't for the slippery pitch. Yep. Daniel Pollard says, play like that for the rest of the season with stay up. Play brilliantly despite the ref. Passion, fight, urgency. Proud to be a Spurs fan again. That's it, mate. That's what it's about, isn't it? It's a good feeling. Peter Turner says, Jack, I've enjoyed a game for the first time in months. What a performance. Even when we made the odd mistake, I felt absolutely fine. I think all this does is highlight just how bad Frank was. 100%, mate. 100%. You've basically said in a much more concise fashion the point I was trying to make at the top, in that it feels like Tudor, with all due respect, is, a pretty competent, decent manager, right? And the tune he's already getting out of these players is a damning indictment of Thomas Frank, who, without question, is the worst manager of my lifetime at this football club. And I'm sure there's circumstances. I'm sure, yes, there's injuries, there's whatever. Daniel Levy leaving as he just pretty much got the job. Or, there are things, mitigating circumstances. But at the same time, right? And it's kind of the point that Igor Tudor was making, It's a bit gammon, it's a bit old school, but like with many things in life, a lot of the time, not everything is going to go your way. Not everything is always plain sailing. And it's good to acknowledge that. And it's worthy to acknowledge that. I'm not one of these people that just discounts that stuff, right? It's only fair to, right? And I think we should all do that. But at the same time, sometimes you have to have that voice in the back of your head that says, nobody's coming to save me. Sometimes I have to make a better situation for myself and do whatever I can in order to achieve that. And it just felt like Thomas Frank wasn't doing that at Spurs. He wasn't able to make the best of the situation that he had. Because look at what Tudor has inherited here. Tudor's inherited an injury-ravaged squad. But not only has he inherited an injury-ravaged squad, he's inherited a squad that the parts of it that, are still kind of, able to play are completely broken in spirit, or at least were completely broken in spirit. He's inherited an entire media narrative and an entire media and almost like football industry longing for Tottenham Hotspur to get relegated. And also on top of that, he's inherited these kind of, waves of thinly veiled, say, xenophobia, If you think that's a bit too much, at least heavy skepticism over him, over his credentials to manage in the Premier League, to manage at all. There was that other interview. It wasn't just the one after the game. There was another one midweek that was held at our training ground, which again was just awful. There's another Sky one. It's the Sky bloke. Is it, what's he called? Is it like Rob Andrews or something? The guy that had the vibrator put on his head on that transfer deadline day outside the ground. And he was just driving at the same point to Tudor, just being basically rude to him, just asking him if he, would do, saying something nonsense like, would you do the honourable thing and step aside if you felt that you couldn't save the club? And all this type of stuff, like, what the hell are these sort of questions? But like one of my bigger points on this that I do feel, right? And people say, "I'll get over it. Don't be a butthurt fan. That's just how football is." I truly think after this season, Neville coming out saying it would be good if we go down. Listen to the way Carragher was during that Liverpool game. Yeah, I know, whatever. He's a Liverpool man and all that type of stuff. But it was an entire game of him just talking about how useless we were and the fact that we probably will go down or whatever in his comms. And these are powerful people within this industry. These are powerful people here. You got Tudor being interviewed by all these different people that are basically calling him rubbish, calling the team rubbish, asking him about relegation. Spurs have got to get serious, man. Spurs have got to get serious, and Spurs have got to get nasty. I think after this season, this is one of those things where the trust, the fan advisory board, whoever can get messages to the club, I think should just say to them, start banning these people from the ground. Ferguson used to do it back in the day. Ferguson was ruthless with this stuff, He sort of set the bar for this type of stuff. Marinakis more recently has banned Gary Neville from the city ground, isn't it? Whatever you call it. Spurs need to get nasty with this stuff. If the biggest sports broadcaster in this country is going to speak about the club or players nastily as it has done the past few seasons, and we're not even talking about the Gary Neville interview with Harry Kane on the golf course, or with Mickey van der Ven at the start of this season, or wheeling out a television and having Harry Kane have to explain his dives in the game, all that type of stuff, right? We're not even mentioning any of that type of stuff. If they are going to be so openly hostile towards the club, it's time we get hostile back. It's time that we create more of this siege mentality. No more of this Spursy shit. No more of this Tottenham are a soft touch. No more of this, it's open season on Tottenham. We've got to start getting nasty. We've got to start giving some back. All these like bog trotter fans, bog trotter clubs that come to our ground from now on, we've got to start making it a fortress. Too many games that get lost at this ground now. We got to find it. We got to find that edge, and that goes across the board. We've got to stop being so passive in all of this stuff. We've got to get nastier. And this isn't anything about pretensions of being a big club. I'm not talking about we got to do this to win the league or any of those sort of conversations are way back on the back burner now. I'm just talking about fundamentally the club needs to find itself again. This season has been painful. It's felt like, everything's been bottomed out of this. It's felt like we've lost our soul. We've been so disconnected from everything. All the parts, the players, the owners, the fans, all of it. It's all been so disparate. It's all been, disconnected all over the shop. And it's a travesty that it's taken something as stark as relegation for those various different factors to all pull together again, for there to be like some sort of unison between those different parts. But regardless of what it's taken, at least it is starting to happen now. At least things are starting to get that way. The fans are starting to get, organised. They are starting to pull together. They are starting to look at what can we do? What can we do to improve this situation? So you see initiatives like Sunday are coming up, right? The players are obviously asking themselves, what can we do to make this situation better? And they're playing better. They're putting more out there. And the club, remains to be seen. I think it's only fair to say, from my understanding, I think they have been supportive of different sort of supporter-led suggestions and all that type of stuff. Obviously, they have a vested interest in that because they want to do whatever they can now within their control to stop this club from getting relegated. But it feels like the players, the fans, everybody else is doing their part. And if we stay up from this point, if we manage to put this horrible season behind us, then it's their turn. It's their turn to finally make good on some of those promises that they've made. And where that begins, who knows? But that will be, like we say, the inquest comes in the summer. Ricochet Pig said the post-Liverpool interview with the twat reporter made me want to back Tudor. It looks like the players support him now too. It does, doesn't it? Feels like it. Cuti Romero sat alongside him today on the bench in the closing stages of the game. I thought was very promising. It was really good. I thought it was a pretty composed performance from Romero tonight, and I know he's annoying. I know a lot of people have very sort of big opinions of Romero. I've shared many of my own, but for my money, he is our one truly elite player. And that's not just in terms of like technical ability. That's about mindset. That's about experience. We used to have a lot of them, But now, for my money, right now, I'm not saying there's nobody else that would be capable of reaching that level, but just the things that he's achieved, his stature within the game, what have you, I think he is our one truly elite player, and he is going to be crucial in the closing stages of this season. Yes, I know he's frustrating. I'm not letting him off the hook for his moments of stupidity and all those things, me saying how important he is. Yeah, it makes it even worse that he behaves in the way that he does. But still, let's just look ahead now. He's back. It feels like he's going into Argentina mode, Cuti, the one that we saw in Bilbao. Tonight felt a bit different, and I think there's something very symbolic to that, and actually not just symbolic. There's something very real to that. Him sat next to Tudor there. That's a sign. We're with this guy, I think. More of that media says Gray, Tell, and Xavi all fire emoji. Mike Hanscom says, excellent from Spurs tonight. Picked up where we left off against Liverpool. Players coming back too. Coys. Capote says, front foot football. Didn't crumble at the first sign of adversity. A serious, well-organised team. Shame on Vinay and Langer for sticking with Frank. The Tell-hating cowardly custard. MJBTHFC 1991 says, Tudor inherited an absolute mess, and it's taken a few games, but he clearly has the mental fortitude that he's instilling into the players now with some tough love. Mentality is everything. Isle of Lily White says, could we be back? Could we? I mean, could we? London Easter says, that was good. This feels weird. Wilson T says, evening, Jack Gray was superb. He was brilliant. He's wonderful. It's Greasby says, nearly back at Tottenham Hale. Players were class. Fans were class. Gray was unbelievable. And we might have a proper player in Olasasi. The win should do wonders for Sunday up the Spurs. Olasasi does look decent, doesn't he? It's one of these ones that you want to sort of say quietly. You don't want to like overhype him. You don't want to like, do you know what I mean? But it's one of those like things where sometimes, right, when you get the young player and you stick him in the team, I think about like a Dean Marney or somebody like that, right? And they have this incredible moment where everyone thinks, outside of Spurs, think about like Makeda at Manchester United, scored that, like, I think it was like a last-minute winner or equaliser against Aston Villa, I want to say. And they have this moment and everyone gets very excited about them. But more often than not, and it's not always the case, but more often than not, the young players who end up having really good careers are the ones who are just quietly really solid. Like they come into a men's environment, they step up into first team football and just look like they belong there. Look assured, look comfortable, look proactive, stand up, are counted, don't hide. And I think those are all of the things that Olasesi has exemplified so far. Look, it's 2 appearances. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but it's 2 very promising appearances. And again, look, the slightly the harsher edge to that is, why is it taking this long? Why is it taking this circumstance for the club to start blooding some of these youngsters? London Easter says, a win for morale without extra time injuries is surely the win-win we needed. We didn't want to be going through. Yeah, it's one of those things like, look, if we had gone through, it would have been amazing. And it would have been exciting and, whatever. But, yeah, Jordan Emmett says, Xavi was pulling the strings tonight. He must start Sunday centrally. We'll see. I don't know, but we'll see. I'd be surprised if he does, but we'll see. Richard Hanscom also says, is Archie Gray our new Mr. Tottenham? He could be. He's definitely a future captain if he stays at the club, isn't he? Mr. Stephen Stotch says, we play like that for the rest of the season. No chance we get relegated. Excuse my French, but Archie Gray is effing sensational. Build the team around him. Telling Xavi also very impressive. Just Keith says, was that football I just saw us play? JKR Infinite says, would have been nice to proceed in the Champions League, but the silver lining is no distractions. Throw everyone in the kitchen sink at the league. If we can show the same grit on Sunday, we can be hopeful. Pissed Off Commuter says, thought Berval really looked good when he came on. He was at it again, wasn't he? And that's positive, isn't it? Getting some of those players back. Mr. Joel Better says, the one thing that Tudor, tactically astute or not, is clearly good at is encouraging players to believe in their own talent. Frank was just risk mitigation. Yeah, bang on, bang on. Jake M says, Gray is God. Robert Glentworth says, so many positives. Taking my little lad George up from Somerset for his first ever game on Sunday, age 7. Go on, George. Never dreamt it would be a relegation battle, but felt like we had to go get behind the lads. Go on, Robert. I love that. Love it, mate. And go on, George. I hope they give him something to remember. Lovely performance, and maybe watch the welcoming. I mean, if you get up there in time, I imagine it'll take you quite a while to get up from Somerset, but still, if you get up with enough time, go see the fans greet the bus. That'll be quite the memory, quite something to have. Welcome in Pieces says, hello, mate. I went to Japan for my 40th, watched some J-League. Was weird to enjoy football. I was waking up at 5 a.m. to watch us implode. Anyway, since I've been back, we seem to be playing again. Well, yeah, that's it. Stay here. You know what I mean? Brexit means Brexit. Just next time you want to go away, go to Cleethorpes or Bognor Regis or something. All right? Proximo5 says, You ain't no fan. All right. Fine. Echosonic Music says, you're lucky my father-in-law supports Liverpool. Hack CPS says the mascots are all still doing Sonny snapshot at the lineup. Yeah, it was quite sweet, that, wasn't it? Quite like that. There was that one lad at the end doing some sort of thing with his hands, some sort of sign, and Xavi Simons was like laughing, found it quite funny, gave him like a little pat on the back and stuff. I thought that was quite nice as well. Adesh Singh says, so many nearly chances that could have made it even more interesting. Lots of heart from the lads and lots of positives to take into the end of the season. We're staying up. COYMFS. That's it, Adesh, mate. That's it. Arthur Bushby says, Spence made one tackle. Wow. Really? I find it hard to believe. But if it's that tackle where he basically stopped that Atletico counter, what a tackle it was. And I thought Spence was brilliant tonight. I thought Spence overall was superb. Really, really good. Mr. Big to You says, we won a flipping game, Jack. There was actual fight, staying up. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Get Alpha Health says, can't help but feel Tudor has won them over. Massively won me over since the first Atlético game and how he's handled everything since then. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Brendan McGurty says, it's not only Sky. The club seems reluctant to apply pressure on the PGMOL for the litany of double standards they have directly affected our results. Levy, for his many faults, would have reacted. You say that, but I'm pretty sure we did. I'm pretty sure we did after the Fulham game. I think it was the Fulham game, the push. It might have been, maybe it was something in the Palace game though, or something. I can't remember. But I think we have been turning a corner on that as well, which, you know, is good. And I agree with you. We've needed to do more of that type of thing. But I don't think Levy even did it either, to be fair. So, you know. And Joseph Bradley says, on my way back from the game, that was a good performance from the lads. More fight. Again, on to Forest. Coys. And that's it. That's it, innit? It's a good evening. We can sleep well again. Yeah, we're out of the Champions League, and people may want to call it tin pot that we're calling it a good evening. But again, it's all in context. You have to consider the context of all of this stuff. Nothing in life is black and white. It's all just shades of grey, isn't it? Oh, how profound. How profound you are, Tottenham podcast man, with your pretensions of intellectualism. Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Wait, hang on, let me just check. I don't want to send you all there at the wrong time. I'm going to read you exactly what it says on the flyer that Billy T has shared. Show up, sing up, stay up. Save our Tottenham, play our part, back the players. Our club needs us more than ever. Loyal Spurs supporters from generations past and present. Sunday, 22nd of March, 11:30 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. The Bricklayers, 803 High Road N17 8ER. Greet the team coach as the players arrive. Around 12:45, the players are due to arrive at this time. Get there earlier, pack the streets, give them a big arrival. Let's do it. Let's do it. Everyone get there, and let's just make it the sort of environment that, you know, these players, you know we're behind them, know everyone's behind them, know what they're fighting for. One of the biggest clubs in the world. We are. People can laugh at that, but we are. We're massive. Look at that parade after Bilbao. Not any old two-bob club gets that sort of a turnout, right? Massive. Well, you got to remember that, and I think we are starting to remember that. I think everyone's starting to remember that now. and realise that. Yeah, it's taken a while, and yeah, it's taken a lot of soul searching or whatever, and there's still plenty more to do. But brick by brick, we're getting back there. So more nights like tonight, more performances like tonight. Come on, Spurs. Come on. Do you know what I mean? Let's do this. Let's take this to the end of the season. Let's stay up. Let's not give all those prying eyes or all those people watching, waiting for us to go down so they can tell their jokes. The Ryanairs, the Domino's Pizzas, the Paddy Powers, all the rival fans, all of it. Let's do our part. Let's stand up, be counted, take this energy, carry it forwards. Come on, you Spurs, up the Spurs. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the show. Please like, subscribe on all your chosen podcast platforms, all that sort of thing. Ad-free podcasts on Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpods. It's getting interesting. Up the Spurs. Much love. Bye-bye.